And you've taken us through some of the stories of just how we got to where we are that really put us on a trajectory to be the company that we are today.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
I remember you telling me about when you were studying bridges and you were talking to Max about the foundation of these bridges and how they were built. And I always use that as a metaphor to the foundation that we have as a company and the strength that we have and to be able to weather the waves and whatever. And just not just the strength in the way the company was set up, but the mindset, the beliefs, the core values. However you got there or got them, I think they were instrumental. Another thing that probably haven't thought about, one thing that always impressed me and I admired when I came to work with you and learn so much was your ability to solve problems, really complex problems, and take something that was really abstract and put order to it and figure it out in your head about how we should think about the problem and how we should approach it. I find a lot of people in business can't do that, or they struggle and they just run circles around a problem until they kind of put order and take abstract thinking. Now, there were a couple problem-solving examples that I would give, and these aren't as abstract, but this also goes to your grittiness and your persistence. I remember the recliners, losing your cell phone in a recliner in Matthews Plaza, and I just thought you're going to let it go. And after that recliner got mutilated and destroyed, somehow after about 30 minutes or an hour, you found your cell phone. It was nestled deep in there. There was another time you locked yourself out of our South Park office on Fairview, and I was going to give you a ride home. Hey, I'll just give you a ride home. We'll come back and get some keys. Let someone open the door. You're like, no, I'm getting my keys out of there. And I think I have a picture of you kind of reaching, coming through the ceiling and figuring out some way to maybe take a hanger and unhinge the door from the outside in. So a lot of great stories, but I just want to acknowledge the approach to complex problem solving and your ability to do that, which it's not easy to do. And I don't know how you get trained for something like that.
Well, thank you. I don't know. I think part of the thing is when something's complex, I have a hard time understanding. So I have to distill it down to something simple, so that it may just be a fruit of a limitation that I have. But
well, I think there's some genius that comes into keeping things simple. I think there's a phrase you've used a lot, Occam's razor.
Yeah.
And so I think that's applied. And when you can distill it down to simplicity, it's actually takes some genius in doing that. And then around mid-2015, we had a transition. You decided, I had never heard of this role before, but you decided you were going to move into executive chairman and you wanted to promote me to president and CEO. So what was your mindset, I guess, at that time, when you wanted to make this transition in our roles? And this was about June 2015. And so then, I was managing partner and COO as you were the president and CEO, since we acquired Jackson, several years prior to that.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into that. And I think some of the main, if I had to kind of bring it down to 2 points, I would say that it was clear to me that you were the right person to be CEO and president for the company, and that it was in the company's best interest to have you driving the bus in that role at that time. And and that's not always something easy for someone to admit, but it just became very apparent to me that was the way forward, and that was what was best for the company and the people, and that you just had a level of passion and dedication and commitment that I was missing. And so I did, that did help energize me, and I think hopefully you, as you took the reins and really drove into, where you took us. And so I think that was the main thing. And then unfortunately, I go back to where we started with Granddaddy Howard turning the key and how he loved turning the key every day. And I found that there were days that it was a chore to turn the key. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think that was fair to bring that to the team. And so that was the start of kind of that realization, that self-realization for me, and to, be certain that I wasn't selfishly making bad decisions for the company.
I think there's so much wisdom in that. We'll make sure that, I think that it's not easy to do. This is your baby, your company. You're the founder. CEO and to entrust someone and to have that self-awareness. We talk a lot about self-awareness in business, and it's always been a great strength of yours to have self-awareness about where you are in this moment in time and to then take a selfless approach to it. Just want to applaud you for that. And I want to go back for a second though, because we haven't talked about Manny or Charlie Workman.
I know. I'm like, we've got to talk about these guys. I mean,
so, we talk about timing and people who enter the business at the right time. So Forrest Stewart, who did a great job for us for several years, had just left in October 2014. I remember you sat down with Manny, who was thinking about moving. He had a job to move with TriNet to San Francisco. He and Graylin didn't want to. And you said, Charlie, I think you need to meet this guy. So I think you interviewed him that morning, and he had been friends. We'd known his family for many years.
Right.
And you said, hey, so I went and interviewed him that afternoon. And so we brought him on board, I think around November 2014. And then I think we had met with Workman, Charlie Workman, for many years when he was trying to sell us home delivery services with 3PD. And so then he had an opportunity where he was not going to start up his home delivery company, but was going to come help us with operations. And so he started with us in January 2015. And I wanted to say, like, for what we were about to go through as a company through the first half of 2015, if we didn't have those two guys bringing their talents, energies, optimism, enthusiasm, skill sets, we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah. I mean, to start with Manny, I mean, it was, I think, the same mentality that I had about bringing you in. Like, all right, here we need some horsepower. And then, about that time, Manny, I think, calls me and says, let's go to breakfast, and kind of lays out his scenario. And I'm like, wait a second, do you mean you would, like, what would you consider coming to work with us? And he was like, yeah, I'd think about it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like an opportunity to draft the best athlete in the draft. We gotta get him. And he asked some of the same questions. Well, what am I going to do? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. There'll be plenty for you to do and ways to add value. And that played out in a big way. And I hear, it's funny, I hear, obviously people ask me about you all the time, or I saw Charlie, but I heard about Manny a lot too. Like, oh, I met Manny, I'm on a board with Manny. And so anyway, I'm really happy with how that played out. And just, it was one of those things where when you see an opportunity to bring in that type of horsepower and talent and athleticism, for lack of a better term, you got to do it. Yeah. And we were very fortunate to do that at the time. And then
before you go into Charlie, I just want to say, so Manny came in as our director of talent and helped us get staffed. Yeah. We needed it at that time. Yeah. And he often reflects on his first day of driving around with you to the outlet on South Boulevard. And I think at that point it was just a clearance center. Yeah. We hadn't made it the hybrid where it's selling new goods. And I think you told him, he said, this is where all of our sins go as a company. But he talks about just the impact of the outlet, which was a clearance center at that time. And now is a vibrant, selling machine. Manny is now our chief operating officer and a key owner in the company. And so we'll get into that in a second. So that's worked out well for all of us. And then you were going to go into Charlie.
Well, and again, it's kind of the same thought process on Charlie. Like, we were so fortunate that he was contractually obligated to not be able to start a company and needed a place to land. And so we were just incredibly fortunate to be able to bring him in and have him focused on just us for a few years, and process improvements and mentality, and his fingerprints were just all over all of these really hard parts of the business. And it was just incredible timing. And then, as we knew, like, Charlie had the ability and desire to have a bigger, broader focus. And it's been cool to see that happen and to be able to facilitate that in some way. And, like, rarely do you have a plan like that and it plays out the way that you hoped it would, but it did there, and it's been really cool.
Yeah. He came in as he was our VP of operations, I believe, and became our EVP of operations, or maybe he was our VP of home delivery, became our EVP of operations. And then we incubated or started a home delivery company, I think in 2017, Riverstone Logistics. And I say incubated it because it only served Broad River retail for 2 or 3 years till we put him on that full time. And then that's gone. And he's the president and CEO of Riverstone Logistics, which is growing and doing phenomenally well. So it was great to see that just how those seeds got planted into 14 and into 15 that have really blossomed. And then we started talking about a management buyout transition from 15 to 18 because you weren't as active in the business, and we wanted to figure out how to figure this out. And so 3 years later, we did a management buyout that included Manny and Charlie and I acquiring your interest. And you said, hey, one of the things I want to do is I'd like to start a founder scholarship fund. I think Jackson will fund it. And so we're going to start this fund. And I think that what you had said to me, well, let me pause. Why did you want to start the founder scholarship fund?
Well, I think hopefully it was some level of acknowledgement about how much I and we, Jackson and I, and Sam Bowles, who was another investor, appreciated the work that everyone did in this company. And it was just a very small, relative token around an acknowledgement that like, hey, we didn't do this. Like this was not, I didn't build this company. We collectively, the company was built by a tremendous amount of hard work from a tremendous amount of people. And it's just trying to acknowledge in some way that, we know that and we're aware of that. And then, as you know, I'm a big, believer in education and what education and opportunity can do for trajectories of families and lives. And so that's kind of why it manifests in the scholarship.
Yeah. And so this Founder Scholarship Fund, which was we set up through National Christian Foundation, awards scholarships to our memory makers or children of our memory makers. And this past year, I think you'll get the final tally. We just were able to give out over $75,000 to like 10 or 11 well-deserving memory makers and children of memory makers for continuing education. So that continues to bless our people and change trajectories of lives. And it's been just such an awesome fund to have and to celebrate those future leaders and stars.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.